Hello, beautiful humans and souls. I'm super excited to be here today with you. And welcome to our Courage Circle for March 25th, 2026. It is fast and furiously moving in beautiful ways. I hope that you are feeling that momentum of March, and I am present to so much. I think one thing that definitely is present in me is that next week, April 1st, I leave for my very first Vision Quest. And so we will not be having a live circle next week. I will make sure to have something posted though and recorded for you all in the community. So be on the lookout for that, just as a side note. But I'm super just in connection with the power of spirit and the trust of spirit, and on a personal note, just working with that relationship of what it feels like in the body to have trust, to build trust with the divine in very tangible ways. And kind of building on what we were talking about last week, and integrating the steps, the micro steps that we've been taking on this journey together since January. And if you participated in the challenge, just taking a moment to pause to what it felt like this week to practice self-trust. On Instagram, I shared with that community that I told you all that I would be also walking with you in that journey. And so I ended up sharing some divine guidance that was meant for somebody in particular, and staying it, even though it, as a human communicating these words, it felt very uncomfortable. And then afterwards, though, sitting with this right, shoulders relaxed down, and being connected with the energy of steadfastness, and noticing how that felt different than how self-trust has felt in my body in the past. And so celebrating that for myself, and celebrating what that means for all of us in this community, in this circle of women, in this circle where we choose courage. And just really heartfelt want to say thank you for showing up in your fullness, even when you're not sure what the next step is, even when you're not sure why you're being asked to do something, but having that trust to say yes. So today we're going to actually talk about vulnerability. And I'm super excited to blend the work of Brene Brown and Bruce Lipton as we kind of unpack this topic. And of course, you know that ACIM is going to be woven in here in some way, shape, or form. So we'll just allow Spirit to guide this training as she always does. And I thank you. So, with that, and without further ado, let's get started. Let's come to the edge of our seats, pressing our feet into the floor to the point that it activates the tops of our thighs. Feel that in the body. Connect with that grounding energy. Let the pelvic bowl rotate forward slightly so that we have an elongation in our lumbar curve and an activation in our lower abdominals. Inviting you to create space between each of the vertebrae as you roll your shoulders down and back, pressing the shoulder blades closer to the midline of the spine, creating an openness in the front plane of the body and this upward growth in the back. Allow the head to come over the shoulders to come over the knees, and allow this divine light that you are exit through the crown as you lift yourself up towards the sky. And now that you have created this beautiful space within your own body, I invite you to inhale through the nose and bring that breath all the way down and let the organs feel massaged as the belly expands outward. Just focus on that expansion and see where the breath leads you. Maybe she calls you upwards into the ribs and into the clavicle, and maybe she keeps you right in the belly. As you begin to exhale, from the highest point of that breath, allow it to exit the body first. And when you get to the point of the navel, allowing the navel to draw all the way back to the back of the spine. And when you're ready, finding your cadence of inhaling once again, retaining the breath, feeling into that expansion, and slowly exhaling. One more breath. Inhaling. And exhaling. And as your cadence returns, I invite you to flutter those eyelids open and join me in full presence as we dive into our talk on vulnerability. Starting right off the bat with a Brené Brown quote, as she says, vulnerability is the birthplace of love, belonging, joy, courage, and truth. May that be the energy of our community. That as we choose consciously to be vulnerable, to take off the masks, to connect with our core authenticity, that we connect with our joy, that we find belonging first within ourselves and then in this community, that we find joy knowing that we are part of the divine, and may we have courage to bring that joy and love and sense of belonging in us and into this community and into our individual communities and to the world beyond. And may all that binds us be truth. May we choose to remove the illusions in our life. So you think most people think that vulnerability equals exposure. But that is a false truth. The truth of it is that vulnerability equals honesty without armor. Last week we talked about one of the pillars of trust and integration was self-honesty. And so in the comments, I invite you to answer the question, where in your life are you performing strength instead of living your truth? One area, what comes to mind? Vulnerability, in the context of how Brené Brown defines it, is uncertainty plus risk plus emotional exposure. Let me get this real clear. It is not oversharing shit that you are still processing, that you haven't, and just dumping, right? That is not healthy vulnerability. It is not emotional dumping, nor is it of just vomiting, right? There is intentionality. It is not for manipulation, and it is not a sign of weakness. Real vulnerability is articulating something before it's been perfected. It's being seen without the controlling element of perception. It's letting yourself care without the guarantees. It's like if I were to extend a scholarship to my coaching program, and then with the condition that the person show up to every call, that group call, one-on-one call, that they are never allowed to make any kind of shifts to schedules, this rigid form. That would be me controlling their experience. But I'm not in charge of their journey. We often experienced vulnerability as conditional love when we were kids. And maybe this is where many of us got our patterning from, right? I would not be surprised if many of us at some point in our journey have felt numb because it wasn't safe to feel, or wasn't safe to feel connected to our feelings. We got told we were too big, too much, too this, too that. And so we made our boxes smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. And so vulnerability became even more scary because of the patterning we had been previously exposed to. But here's the real truth of this. You can't numb vulnerability without numbing joy. So if you have been seeking happiness, first you have to get angry and let yourself feel all the feels that you didn't let yourself feel previously. Now you don't have to go back to those stories, but the emotions are stuck in the body. And anger is our bridge to empowerment when we express it in healthy and healthful ways. If you're just jumping in, you feel free to connect with the map of consciousness training and see that scale. It can be a very powerful tool. So, Brené Brown says that vulnerability is honesty without the armor. We often have layered armor, right? Maybe the first layer of armor is this fear of rejection. Again, this fear of being too much or not enough can be another layer of armor. And this conditioning from childhood that it was never safe to express. What this might look like in our body is that we may have a tight jaw. We may clench our teeth at night or our fists. We may feel like we have a plate of armor right over our heart. We may have rounded shoulders where we collapse our upper torso on top of itself, that it feels vulnerable to sit up straight. And we may find that our relationship with breath lives right in this space, that it feels vulnerable to bring the breath all the way down into the belly. The body closes. The body puts on its armor way before the mind catches up and explains why. If you've been a part of the SAGE community, Sage Leaders community at all, for any length of time, you know that we also quite often integrate Stephen Porges' work with the polyvagal theory. And so, if you're familiar with that vocabulary, I wanted to anchor this in that language for you as well. And so, vulnerability requires the ventral vagal safety state. When the body feels, perceives that we are not safe, we shift into flight, aka defensiveness, flight, aka avoidance, freeze, also known as numbness, or we fawn. People pleasing. If any of those resonate, feel free to drop an emoji in the chat. And here's a takeaway. Right? These are just patterns. They are not who you are. They are patterns. And now that we have an awareness around the pattern, we can shift it. Okay? Your inability to be vulnerable is not a flaw, it is a protection pattern. All right, so let's draw this inward even more. And if you're not familiar with Bruce Lipton's work, he wrote the book, The Biology of Belief, and talks a lot about epigenetics. And so he frames his work around recognizing your environment and your perceptions influence gene expression. All right, so chronic emotional suppression, guess what? Equals stress chemistry. Stress chemistry equals survival mode. What did we just talk about? Flight, fight, freeze, and fawn. These are survival strategies. Defensiveness, avoidance, numbness, or people-pleasing. Survival patterning. And let's take this deeper. So you might say, but I didn't grow up in a bad environment. My parents didn't abuse me. They were quite normal. Okay, amazing. Celebrate that. And let me ask you this. Do you always speak your truth? Your full truth? Because from an epigenetics perspective, when we suppress our truth, the body reads the environment as unsafe. So the more that we speak our truth, the more that we signify to our body that she is safe. And when we express our truth and she feels safe, we create coherence within ourselves. The cell responds to perception, not reality. So when we don't express our truth, our body increases cortisol, our nervous system maintains dysregulation, our inflammation increases, and we disconnect from our intuition. What does this feel like in the body then? It feels like mental exhaustion. It feels like burnout. It feels like numbness. It feels like constant tension, can't sleep well at night, disconnected from purpose. And maybe a hard truth to hear right now is that suppression is self-abandonment at a cellular level. Vulnerability is not about being accepted. It's about self-honoring. Wounded vulnerability, you know, those moments when you overshare and you dump, or you witness to the oversharing and the dumping, that's considered wounded vulnerability. And what's happening there is the person is saying, see me, validate me. And that is not what we're talking about here. Sovereign vulnerability, which is what Brene Brown is talking about, is when we can express ourself and say, this is what is true for me. Period. Without needing a cheerleader or a team of cheerleaders, without anybody else needing to say, I'm proud of you, without needing to be externally validated, saying, oh yeah, she's got it right. None of that. When we embody our sovereign vulnerability, we create coherence within ourself. And in that moment, we stop abandoning ourselves. Remember that this is a moment by moment movement. It is not, I do this once and I'm forever changed. Now, I might do this once and it may have a ripple effect, often will have a ripple effect on how I make subsequent decisions. Right? And the version of me that shows up in the next moment is different than the version of me that showed up in the past moment. And neither the future or the past exists, right? So that's a tangent for a different day. But just connecting with the reality that we're constantly in this process of expression, of choosing to be present now. And just to also part the waters a little bit more. Another way that wounded vulnerability can show up is when we are vulnerable without self-responsibility. Like we're oversharing and we're dumping. And the languaging in that process is, well, she didn't do this, or that person hurt me in this way, or he didn't, blah, right? And so there's lots of blaming language circling in the dumping and the sharing. And what this wounded vulnerability is actually is somebody caught up in the victim triangle, right? They're seeing themselves as a victim in their story. But where sovereign vulnerability comes into play is when we take full responsibility for the life, for the circumstance, for the story that has unfolded. And when we do that, that is when we are truly liberated and truly free. When we can ask, how did I co-create this? Let's just take a deep inhale. There was a lot there. And so I really kind of want to anchor this into the body with a somatic practice. So if you're willing to come to the edge of your seat, I invite you to place your feet on the ground, to lower the eyelids towards the tip of the nose or the floor, or close them completely. And take a moment to scan the body. And as you scan the body, where are you bracing? Where are you holding tension? Where are you expecting a shoe to drop? And just notice that. And once you have noticed that, I invite you to inhale through the nose. And exhale through the mouth. Maybe making a shh sound as you exhale. And as you continue to inhale through the nose and exhale through the mouth, inviting you to place one hand on the heart and one hand on the belly. And as you focus on your inhales through the nose and your long exhales through the mouth, begin to soften your jaw, maybe opening it from side to side. Perhaps rolling the shoulders down and back, creating space between the tops of the shoulders and the bottoms of the ears. And considering opening the hands, palms face towards the ceiling or the sky. And from this place, I invite you to sit with this question. What am I not saying? Whatever it is that comes up first in you, before you have a chance to think about it, you can say it out loud, you can write it on a piece of paper, you can type it in the comments or in the chat. Maybe another question is where am I wearing armor in my life? And what would it feel like to choose not to carry that armor in this moment? Staying in this space for as long as you need. From here, you're welcome to journal or pause the recording to take the time that you need. For those of you that wish to come back, I just invite you to connect with your breath. Allow it to return to a natural cadence. And when you're ready, fluttering the eyelids open. And we're going to go a little bit deeper into that space of armor. So just to kind of put form to what armor can sound like. Or it might sound like when someone asks you a question and you've had a crappy day. It might be the response of, I'm fine. Or when your energy shifts and your partner asks you, what's up? And you say, nothing. When you're actually feeling quite a lot. It might be over-explaining instead of just being pointed in what you need to say. Armor can look like avoiding the hard conversations. Putting off the hard thing to do. Armor can look like performing confidence. Wearing the mask of I have it all together. Armor can also look like people pleasing. Trying to be the diplomat, keep everybody at peace, mediate between situations instead of truth speaking. In general, armor has the energy of, it's not a big deal. When the truth of the matter sounds like, this actually matters to me. There's a lot here. And there are layers to this. And so the Sage Leader community is really about embodiment of practice, and we do that through expanding our nervous system capacity in micro commitments. So for the next 24 hours, I invite you into this integration practice to speak one truth that you have been avoiding and to do so in a way where you do not over-explain yourself and you do not perform strength. Meaning, if you need to cry while you're saying what you need to say, then allow the tears to come and allow yourself to cry while you do and say the thing you need to say. This might look like, here are some tangible ways that you can start this practice. What actually is true for me is da 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 da. Or I feel, and name your feeling. Name what's coming up for you. Or you get invited to something that your body cringes to, for example. And in that situation you may say, I need what? I need to take more time. I'd like to get back to you in 24 hours. I need to check my calendar. I really want to invite you to take off a layer of the mask, to undo one coil or a part of one coil of the pattern of where we have been mistaking protection for power. Where we have been mistaking performance for presence. Our bodies do not need to be perfect. They need us to be honest. And when we create the honesty for ourselves, we create internal coherence. And that creates safety. And from safety, everything shifts. All right, beautiful souls. Whew. There was a lot there. Ask your questions. Show up for each other. I'll be in the community. Reach out. Sending each of you so much love as you choose to do this work for yourself. Have a great week. I look forward to hearing how you choose yourself and how your integration practices go. Okay, ciao.